Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here to our work session, Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. Let's see, all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Wingfield and Commissioner
Anderson.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have, let's see, presentations and reports?
Gosh, for the first time in a long time, I don't have a whole lot of newness to report. Quack's open for business. So if you need car washes, that's open for business. I can't remember if I shared that last time or if they were about to open. I think they're about to open. So they're open. The Starbucks building continues to move forward. They're getting close to doing the roof. So we're getting there. Starbucks is ready to go already yesterday, so their permit's done. But we got to get a building built first, so I'm trying to hold them off a little bit, get that building in. 550 West RDA over around Krispy Kreme, there's still things that we're working through there, some development agreements with the RDA. If those things can get in place with the RDA, then you might see a little bit more, at least property movement as far as combining parcels and getting them ready for some development discussions and subdivisions. So those will be forthcoming with maybe even a small road alignment. I'll bring that forward when it's ready. And the I-15 construction continues. It's working its way northward. You see it marching. Remember, a component of that on the tail end will be some sound wall improvements along the ARS building area on that north side of the road, the west side of the road where those residences are. So that will be forthcoming as they work this way. Otherwise, Scandinavian Designs it's a furniture store over next to Zurcher's. That is back on the table. They came and got a building permit again. So this is the third go. Let's hope that they move forward with this contractor and get it going the way that they always intended to. And got some other potential projects in the works, but I think everything's waiting until they see how this May 1 soft opening goes and whether or not it's time to invest capital again and that sort of thing. So I'll give you an update as we know some more certainties about where some of these other businesses' future planning may go in the coming months.
Thank you, Mr. Agate. Consent items. We have consideration of our meeting minutes from April 14th, our work session and our regular meeting.
I just want to note, so Wanda, Commissioner Knight told me that there was an error on the date, so I'm fixing that. So that's been noted. But if there's any other corrections, just let me know.
Okay, and then we have a consideration of preliminary, or action items, consideration of preliminary subdivision approval and recommendation to the City Council for small subdivision approval of Erkenbrack subdivision plan and plat, approximately 5644 South Weaver Drive, Riverdale, Utah, 84405, requested by Cole and Christina Erkenbrack. Mr. Agate?
Thank you. Yeah, the applicant on this one is Cole Erkenbrack. They currently live real close to this property, right just outside of the Schneider's Riverside Golf Course. I don't remember the exact address, like 5604 South, so it's not too far up the street from this. Anyway, let me go over the executive summary specifically. They're represented by CRS Engineering Group, which Clint Allen is representative from CRS, and he's on this call this evening joining us. Just for your sake, Clint and Cole's sake, this is a work session right now. We'll have the main session at 6:30, wherein the Planning Commission will make a decision, but I kind of give them a chance to understand the project and ask, maybe some, I guess you could say, easier or simple questions in advance of the actual main meeting. before they take any action, so we can make for hopefully a smoother meeting at 6:30. So that's the intent of this discussion at this point. So you really don't have to add anything. It's just kind of a staff report, but if you feel a strong reason to say something at this point, you could, or you can wait till the main meeting and really then address your comments prior to an actual decision being made by the planning commission. So I just want to give you that guidance. So if you really want to get into it, you can reserve your comments until that main meeting, and then we can really talk about some issues, okay? So if I speak in error or out of line, you want to correct me, clearly jump in, but otherwise let's wait till that main meeting. That being said, planning commissioners, Paul and Christina, you can see they're on the line. They're participating. They've applied for this residential subdivision site plan. The address developed for this property is 5644 South, South Weaver Drive. It's in an agricultural A1 zone. It is before the planning commission as a small subdivision preliminary review. And what that allows for is, as you probably recall from the last one we did, just our last meeting, is you will do, or you have the option of doing a preliminary approval and then making a recommendation to city council following your preliminary approval consideration. It's kind of a combo effort to expedite the process where there is not a whole lot going on with the 2-lot subdivision. Simplify the process. So in my original executive summary, I didn't write it as fully or completely as I should have. It should say, following the presentation and discussion of the preliminary site plan and plat proposal, the planning commission may make a motion to approve and then recommend city council approve the site plan and plat, approve and recommend city council approval with additional requirements, table the matter, or not support a recommendation to city council for approval. And obviously at that point you could approve or not approve. You could even approve and then not recommend to city council, although I don't know why you would do that. It's just for the sake of saying that that's an option. That is an option. No public hearing element is required for this proposed subdivision, and make sure you have appropriate findings of facts for any decisions you feel you need to make. Should this proposal receive a recommendation to city council, then it would be brought to them at a future date for their consideration and approval. The properties are listed under the county recorder's the ownership of Ernest Schneider Jr. Trust Agreement. This property has been maintained as kind of an agricultural property area around a bend of South Weaver Drive. Cole is a relative of Ernest Schneider and the trust overseeing the property, and their plan is to own approximately 1 acre, which is 41,382 square feet for this particular subdivision, as a new parcel on the property, with the remainder still being in the trust's control and guidance for the time being. You'll notice on the plat, when we get down to it, you'll see that there's an existing private drive. That was a private drive that was established by a previous subdivision on this property area under the name of Abbott Subdivision. So I think maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. Actually, now I think about it, when I put this together, it's about 3 years ago that came through. Lori Abbott and her husband, I think I can't remember his name. It might have been Clint. Anyway, I don't remember. But that being said, this is a lot similar to that at that time. This has had a review by the city engineer, public works director, the fire chief and fire marshal, police department, and the city administrator with their comments, and I will briefly review them either during this meeting or if I run out of time during the main meeting. The general plan for the area is set as agricultural, and this project clearly complies with that proposed land use. No issues there at all. I do have a handful of comments on here, and some of my comments are a little tricky because it is a small subdivision. And so in cases like this, I defer pretty frequently, well, I defer almost entirely upon comments from the city engineer and the public works director. What they see as substantial concerns or comments that they're concerned about relative to how it connects to utilities, whether or not it's connected to city infrastructure or the road. In this case, it's state infrastructure because South Weaver Drive is actually a state UDOT road, and that sort of thing. So I'll try to highlight a few of my comments and then move on through there. Just going through briefly my site plan review. You can see there's just a few minor things that have been pointed out in yellow relative to the property owner's name or the developer's name on there. In this case, they are one and the same. The Erkenbracks are the property owner and developer. And then just getting the right address, which to their credit, they didn't have the address. I got the address as part of this review and added it. So that's not the applicant's missing data. That's an address that I was able to establish for it. Moving on to page 2, I just put future curb gutter and sidewalk location not identified on site plan. The reason I put that is, in this case, they have a deferred requirement to do curb gutter and sidewalk. However, it would be good for us to know on the plat where that will be located, so at a future date when that's established, we know that it's meeting the city standard. And that's what we do on that habit subdivision as well. So that's one of my comments there. No vicinity map provided. That's something that probably can be added. Moving on to page 3. I have on here, stamp and signatures not shown at this time, just to get an indication that that will be required on the final Mylar. Landscape plan and area calculations not provided. There does need to be a small landscape plan. It doesn't need to be anything aggressive, just something about planting area, showing where the irrigation line at least comes in, not necessarily a full irrigation plan. It doesn't need to be that elaborate, just kind of showing how it comes in from the main water line, that sort of thing. Let's see. Even at the plan and profile sheet, you'll know I put these sheets were not provided, may not be applicable. That's again me giving deference to the city engineer and the public works director in their commentary. Existing natural ground, I just put not shown. Again, landscape, the water irrigation I've talked about. Going to page 5, right-of-way lines are shown but not identified with an actual label saying ROW or right-of-way. Same face curb lines just being clear where they are. UDOT approval. South Weaver Drive is UDOT roadway. UDOT approval is in process or should be in process if it's not, and is required for the project and subdivision. Just UDOT has right-of-way protocols and standards whenever you cut a new access way onto a UDOT road that you meet their requirements. So I'm sure you're aware, but you, CRS, probably will want to approach UDOT on that and get that started sooner than later. I was at one of those this morning, and they're very, how do I say this, labor intensive, and they take a lot of time to get a simple approval in some cases. So my advice would get on that as soon as you can. Let's see. New existing storm drainage. Again, I'm deferring to the city engineer on all those comments. Planning strip. Just make sure if there is a planning strip plan, it's identified as such. Page 6. SWIP. Some kind of SWIP will need to be directed per guidance of the planning or public works director, whatever he requires there, or his SWIP and manager requires. So we'll need to get a sheet that reflects that, or at least get commentary from him that he's comfortable with your SWIP plan for the site.
I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
Sorry. Typically, SWIPs aren't required for any disturbance under 1 acre.
Yeah.
And the site is less than an acre, so it'd be difficult for them to.
I would still defer you to the public works director, and I'll tell you what. Riverdale City defines an acre as 40,000 square feet. I know it's unique. We're different than the dictionary definition of an acre, but that's Riverdale City acre. And I know we're going off of state acres, but I just want the public works director to make sure that he clarifies with you what that expectation is per his understanding.
Okay.
So I recognize your comment, but anyway, just screen it through him, and if he's comfortable with it, I'll clear that on my review, and it'll be done.
All right.
See, again, gas lines shown. That's kind of just, again, at the discretion of the city engineer and public works director. If they're not concerned, I'm not. The only reason I bring that up is sometimes gas lines can be an impact on properties that are trying to be developed for homes for my building official. When he's looking at the site and looking at the building plans, he goes, oh, I didn't know there was a gas line here. So it's helpful to know where some of the hard utilities are on site where appropriate. Same with, again, telephone lines, poles, etc., especially if they're buried. No cross-section on roadway shown. Again, I'm going to defer to the city engineer on that comment. So that's my long and short review. Looking at the public works director, he says on his comments, under stormwater, a storm prevention plan for construction site BMPC. There again, Clint, he's asking for on his own independent review. So I think you want to have a discussion with him. And notice of intent filed with state on that. Streets, a letter from UDOT with approval for site location access, a letter recorded with plat stating that the owner is required to install approach, curbs, gutters, storm drain, and sidewalks at such time as they are deemed necessary at the owner's expense. That's just a future reservation statement on the actual documents that will record the plat specifically or the supporting documentation. water meter and service line shown on the plan, backflow preventer location, size and type if preliminary water is going to be used for irrigation, sewer size, location, and type of material for sewer mains and laterals. And then a note, this is a standard note he puts on all plans, it just says note requiring all construction materials shall meet Riverdale City standard specifications. Almost that exact statement. No comments from the police chief, no comments from the fire chief. City manager or city administrator says he's good with the small subdivision. This is very similar to the Abbott project. A few months ago, I should say a few years ago, but that's okay. Roger's had a lot going on lately, so that's okay. Therefore, similar issues of resolution as per Abbott. Moving on to the city engineer's comments. I know this looks like a lot, but honestly, 2 pages of comments really isn't too bad from our city engineer considering what we've seen. So you actually should feel fortunate. As applicants. That being said, he's accepted the geotechnical report. I just passed along Lori Abbott's geotechnical report and talked to my building official. He said that probably should work and cleared our engineer agrees. So you're good there. Free geotechnical report for you guys. Good job. Way to have family. That's good. Plat closes with tolerances and standards. And then some platting comments, which I'm sure Clint can review and address. Again, I would encourage you both the applicants and Clint to contact our city engineer and work through these comments to make sure you meet whatever he's looking for there. I know he's saying he wants more of an exact APZ too. I don't know what to tell you there. I know I told you guys to do the best you can. Maybe just put approximate location or something like that. Maybe it's just terminology to make him feel more comfortable with where you think it's at. He's just wanting to make sure it's shown as an appropriate easement in the right location. So,
yeah, and on that, we don't have any exact information. So, being able to on a plat come out and say this is exactly where it is.
That's why I'd say approximate.
Major liability issue for us.
That's why I say the language approximate.
Yeah,
maybe that's more tolerable from an engineer's perspective.
We'll talk to him. We'll work that out.
Okay. Moving on improvement drawings. There's a few things here. Again, the UDOT commentary, making sure the pavement widths and depths for South Weaver Drive meet UDOT standards, cross-section for roadway, the type of piping for the culinary water service, detailed drawing of culinary water meter box and service lateral connection, detailed drawing of sanitary sewer connection to the Riverdale City main line. He's looking for those, your detail sheet that shows the cross sections. I think that's what he's wanting here. Plan profile drawing of existing sanitary sewer main pipeline, so you know where you're connecting in. Materials for sanitary sewer piping to be shown on improvement drawings. Design depth of sewer lateral connection. Width and limits for culinary trench, along with the patching material depth needed to be shown on drawings per UDOT. Grading plan along the frontage of South Weaver Drive needs to be submitted showing the location, slope, direction, and grades, and the top back to curb elevation of the curb and gutters. Sidewalk will need to be shown as far as its location. Developer will need to have a SWIP. There's that again. So again, talk to the public works director. And how will stormwater be collected and where will it be connected to? And that's a legitimate concern. So we'll want to know how your stormwater. I have a little bit of the same thought process. Where does the stormwater go? I know there's not a lot, but as it comes off the home, as it comes off the driveway, where is it wanting to go if you're not going to have curb gutter sidewalk? So those are the comments there, planning commissioners. Then you have his application, and then you have the survey/plat map drawing showing it at current time. And I guess at that point I defer to any questions or comments from the planning commission for myself, and we'll go from there. And then if you have questions for the applicant, save it until the main meeting, and that'd be the appropriate time to ask those questions. Okay. Oh, Rick, if you want to say something, you're muted.
Mike, I've got one quick question. We're calling this a small subdivision, but really it's just one lot. Is that correct?
It's a 2-lot subdivision because you're still going to have the remainder parcel.
Oh, okay.
You really never can have a 1-lot subdivision by the very definition.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you'll always have a 2-lot subdivision at a minimum.
But only one lot is planning on being developed at this time.
As a home, yes. The 0.95-acre lot will be the home lot. The remainder will be a remainder parcel. And if you look on the actual plat drawing, you'll see a kind of a dotted, I guess you'd say trail or area. That is a future kind of roadway, a reserved roadway that was established per the Abbott subdivision when they last came through. And now I see
Okay, the one that says C note 6 on
Yes.
it.
Yes. Yep. And they're just re-identifying that here on this plat since it will obviously be touching this plat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
To have one, where's the second lot gonna be done when they decide to do it?
Well, the second lot's the remainder lot, Wanda. At the current time, it's just the remainder 8.77 acres.
Is that on the left or the right of the lot one?
Kind of all around it. Yep, it's on all three sides, the north, south, and east side of the lot.
Okay, so we haven't divided it basically for one lot.
There could be future lots for future family members. I've had this both indicated by Erkenbracks as well as the Abbotts in the past. This is a family trust parcel, so one of these could be parcelized in the future if there's any interest by family members. That's my understanding.
Okay, now, are we closing in the back part of this? So who's got access to that? Can you access the back of this lot? I know there's a lot of land back there.
No, not currently, but that's why I think why that roadway, see that note 6, that's why that's there as a road access. Should in the future they desire future road access for more parcels in the back. It's kind of reserved strip or a future drive or access way. That's what it's there for. The very
Didn't want to
comprehensive.
Just didn't want to block all that
Yep.
other land and not be able to access it.
Yep. And it may be a bigger width than that. That's just kind of a reserve strip so that all future family members can say, okay, there needs to be some access way back here for future lots.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Mike, so the main access to this lot 1, it's off South Weaver Drive, is that right?
Correct. Yep. And they may have to with UDOT, they may not be ready to. They may have to figure out where they want their drive access to be. UDOT may compel that. So that's something to think about as you look at a site. Where is your driveway going to be? Because I have a feeling UDOT's going to say, we need to know definitively how wide it is and where you want to put it. So you're probably going to want to think a little bit about your house configuration as part of your UDOT application. Just a little bit for driveway access.
So you have lot 1 and then the other parcel, the Ernest Schneider Junior Trust, will that change to Erkenbrack then?
No, it'll remain the Ernest Schneider Junior Trust. This is what happened with the Abbott. It's the remainder parcel. You could call it parcel 2. But the reason they're not calling it, it is lot 2 in the context of what we're doing, but it's a remainder unplatted parcel for future parcelization is the best way to say it. Yeah.
All right.
Well, it looks like that's it. Amy, I don't know anything else and doesn't look like any of the other commissioners do.
Okay. Anybody have any discretionary items? Okay. With that, motion to adjourn? I'm moving. Do we need to wait till 6:30?
Yeah, so we could take about a 6-minute break.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need,
You don't need a formal motion on this
Okay.
because it's a work session. It's not a formal action meeting. So you're okay to have a motion.
Okay.
We can just be adjourned for now.
meeting is adjourned and we'll resume at 6:30 for our
Yep.
regular meeting.
Mike, can you tell us what's going on in the Ritter Drive?
They're widening it to a full 60-foot right-of-way with curb gutter and sidewalk as much as they can on both sides of the road. When I say they, the contractor is per engineering designs from our city engineer.
So do you have a date?
I think they're trying to have it completed by late summer or early fall. I think that's the plan.
So it's gonna be closed for several months still, right?
Yeah, little bit longer. And COVID slowed things down. Obviously, manpower. They don't have as much manpower to get the job done.
Okay. And the Coleman subdivision, I see a lot of homes in there that haven't been finished. Are they working on those or what's
Oh
going on
yeah,
there?
yeah. They're just aggressive. They just have a lot of building permits out at the same time. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. You're welcome. No.
Shaylee, do you think we have everybody back?
Let's see.
I don't think everybody, I don't know.
There's my.
Mike.
Yeah, it looks like it. on my side.
Is Wanda here?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. Oh,
Suzette's still stepped away, but you can maybe give her a minute.
okay.
Hi, Blair.
How are you doing?
Good. I haven't seen you forever. How are you?
Real good.
Good.
I didn't even know you got married, so it shows what I paid attention to, huh?
Well, we lived together for a long time and then had to make it official for the parents.
I know how that goes.
Now we're trying to make it official with a house.
Just right over by Michael's.
So I actually live in that house right next to where this lot's going to be now.
It's the same one you've lived in for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we ready to get started?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Suzette will walk in. We probably could go.
Or we can hold off a minute or
It's up to you. You know, you can make that call. Your choice. Oh, there she is.
here she comes. Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to our Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. I'd like to note that all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Wingfield and Commissioner
Anderson.
Anderson. I was afraid I'd butcher that. Do we have any public comment? Have you seen any, Shaylee?
So no emails. Let me check the YouTube video. No YouTube comments. Let me see if Rich texted me. And no. So no public comments right now.
Okay. And I'll do that again before we end our meeting, Mike.
Yeah.
Present with no public comments, presentations and reports, Mr. Eggett.
Right. My thoughts are a little more organized from our last meeting, so I'm going to go through this faster. The Quack's open for business. They're currently washing cars and taking memberships to wash cars monthly if that's a service you'd like to take advantage of or know someone who does. The Starbucks building there on the corner of Riverdale Road and 300 West is moving forward. It's getting close to putting a roof on it. Starbucks pretty much has a building permit already issued. They're just waiting for a building to work on. And then the 550 West project area, we're working on property assemblage and getting things ready, hopefully to do some subdivision preparation here in the near future. When I say we, the redevelopment agency working with a developer agent on that. As well as there's other businesses in the community that are looking at expansion/retention strategies to be in the community and improve their site, but we're waiting on kind of this May 1st COVID naturalizing of society type scenario to occur. To that point, I did fill the note in the work session. There is a moderate risk guidelines document that was issued today by the Morgan Weaver Health Department. I would encourage you all to look at what kind of businesses are open on the 1st and kind of what their practices are. There's only about 7 types of industry or services that are still closed. It looks like almost everything else is open. So be sure to go to weavermorganhealth.org and look at those limitations and what Weaver Morgan Health Department has said can be operating for business effective May 1. Also on the coronavirus Utah website, you can see the Utah Leads Together 2.0 plan. It's pretty in-depth. I read it today. It's got every industry and all the requirements in a moderate setting, not a severe setting. And there is a document called Phased Health Guidelines. It should be a version 3 you can download and look at for each industry and what the state is requiring to do each industry. So the reason it matters with Leader Morgan Health, if you heard the press conference today or read articles, the governor has created state standards, but the local community health departments can rein in those standards or ease those standards as they see appropriate. They can even go to the State Board of Health and the governor's office and request an even lightened standard if they feel like it's appropriate based on the number of cases in a community. So you might see in a week or two, if some counties in the state feel like they're ready, they could technically go to more of a yellow standard if the governor feels like that they're able to do that. And this will be evaluated every 2 weeks. So again, on the 15th, there'll probably be another evaluated period to see if we're staying in that orange or if we're even looking at maybe a yellow at that point or sometime in the future 2 weeks after that. So just kind of take note of that as you look at it. But I would definitely advise you to look at one or both of these documents. It was very interesting to understand not only how I personally interact with some of these business situations, but how obviously as a city we engage in overseeing these interactions in the city. One thing I will note that is very different that Lee pointed out today in the conference with us prior to the governor's announcement. This is an executive order. This is not a directive. The reason that matters, the order supersedes the directive, and the order does make things enforceable by the health departments or appropriate for the purposes of fines or even, I suppose, jail time, although that would be hard to push in those severe situations. So be aware of that. We may receive complaints, and we've already been directed. I've talked to Shaylee about it. We've been directed to contact Morgan Weaver Health Department. She has a contact there if there are violations. So I guess my point in sharing that is if there are violations either reported to you or you feel like you need to report them to us, let us know so we can take appropriate precautionary measures to advise Morgan Weaver Health Department of any concerns you see. I guess that's why I'm letting you know to look for those standards. So it's a pretty important thing I missed in the work session, but I feel it's appropriate to share with you as voluntary community leaders who may or may not be asked some of these questions. That's it. That's all I have.
Mike, can you give us the link again to what those are?
So the Morgan Weaver Health Department Moderate Risk Guidelines, it's just weavermorganhealth.org, and you're going to look for moderate risk guidelines. I'm sure it'll be somewhere near the front of their page. There'll be a link to that. And then the other one is on the coronavirus.utah.gov website, and that you're going to look for phased health guidelines for the general public and businesses. Phased health guidelines. And if you got the right document, it'll say V3, because I think this is the third version of this document as this thing has evolved. Those will be very key documents going forward as of May 1 in understanding both how your businesses and your interactions work, as well as how obviously the community should oversee business relationships with customers and clients.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And the governor has tasked the city to somewhat be aware of how that's operating and may ask communities and or the counties to report back to the governor. So we're also a little bit on that way.
Any more, can you email them to us?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're not able to find them, I certainly can. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eggett. Consent items, consideration of meeting minutes from April 14th, 2020 work session and regular meeting. Do we have any changes? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve this consent items.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, action items, consideration of preliminary subdivision approval and recommendation to the city council for small subdivision approval of Erkenbrack subdivision plan and plat, approximately 5644 South, South Weaver Drive, Riverdale, Utah, 84405, requested by Cole and Christina Erkenbrack. I will turn the time over to you, Mr. Agate.
Thank you. I think maybe I'll go through everything, and then at the end I'll share the plat if there's any questions or comments about anything specifically on that plat drawing.
Perfect.
As noted in the work session, just as a kind of disclaimer before we go forward, this is actually a preliminary approval by the Planning Commission and a recommendation to City Council. By City Code, it allows us to carry out both activities at the same time. So I should make that more clear, whereas my motion on the executive summary isn't as clear on that fact. That being said, Cole and Christina Erkenbrack are the applicants. They're represented by CRS engineers, who tonight Clint Allen is representing CRS engineers and joining with us. If you have any questions of him specifically, the approximate address for the site is 5644 South, South Weaver Drive in an agricultural A1 zone. There is no public hearing required to consider the proposed subdivision. Again, as was noted in the work session, this is a small subdivision, so it doesn't require as much review or scrutiny as a typical process wherein we would have multiple meetings with the Planning Commission, 2 meetings minimum, and then go to City Council. This one technically could have one review at the Planning Commission and then one with City Council. Should the proposal receive an approval from the Planning Commission and a recommendation to the City Council, the site plan would be brought forward to the City Council for future review at a later date. I'm getting feedback. You might have a microphone open. You want to check your mics.
I know I muted mine. I'm getting feedback also. So if you're not speaking, could you make sure your microphone is muted?
Perfect. Thank you. The petitioner's property are listed in the county records on the ownership of the Ernest Schneider Jr. Trust Agreement. Property has been agricultural or otherwise unused land for many years along South Weaver Drive. Cole Erkenbrack and Christina Erkenbrack are relatives of Ernest Schneider, and the trust are overseeing the property. And there'll be approximate 1 acre, which is 41,382 square feet, or about 0.95 acres, that will be created as a new parcel on this property. The remainder will be a remainder parcel that will continue under the ownership of the trust for the time being. I do have staff reports, which I'll review in a minute. The general plan use for the area is currently set as agricultural, and the proposed project complies with the proposed land use. In the packet, you have the preliminary site plan and plat review, which I've provided and discussed at length during the work session. I'd be glad to review any of the items you feel appropriate at this time, or obviously during the questioning. But otherwise, I think for the sake of being expeditious with this, I'm not going to go over each and every item, except for maybe hitting a few highlights. I think I'm going to just note on page 2, future curb, gutter, and sidewalk location not identified on site plan and contours not currently shown. Add a vicinity map. Let's see. Page 3, show a basic landscape plan and area calculations for the site. Just to know what the landscape plan is, even if it's just a big, in Abbott's case, I think they just drew a big rectangle and said, like natural plantings and grass landscape or something like that, and then it showed an approximate percentage of the overall lot area. So for instance, and then obviously an identification of where the irrigation line will stub to provide water for the site. Moving on, page 5 of my review, show and identify the right-of-way, show the face curb lines, the note about South Weaver Drive being a UDOT road-away, and that there needs to be an approval process, and then the approval provided showing that UDOT is comfortable with the new access location on South Weaver Drive. Planning strip being shown and identified, and then engineering deferrals for storm drain, sanitary sewer, water, those sort of lines. The only other item is making sure that we know where existing gas lines and or telephone lines would be located, so that we make sure that our building official knows where they're at or relatively at. So he looks at the site and the future building plan. Cross section and roadway, none provided. That will need to be provided and shown. Defer to the engineer for storm drainage and runoff calculations. So that's about the extent of mine. Moving on to the public works director. A few items under stormwater. He talks about, and I did note this in my review, but forgot to mention it. The storm water prevention pollution plan for the construction site with BMPs. Notice of intent filed with state. Again, I'll defer to Mr. Allen to contact the public works director or a CRS engineer associate to contact the public works director to work through that comment in both mine, the engineers, and the public works director's reviews. Streets, a letter from UDOT for site location, a letter recorded with the plat stating the owner is required to install approaches, curbs, gutters, storm drain, and sidewalks at such a time as they are deemed necessary at the owner's expense. Again, that may be allowed to be a note probably on the plat, or more specifically a letter that can be recorded with the plat. Underwater, water main and sewer site shown on the plan, backflow preventer, location, size, and type of collector water is going to be used for irrigation. Sewer size, location, type, material for sewer mains and laterals, and then a note requiring all construction materials to meet Riverdale City standard specifications. Have no concerns from the police department. The fire chief is good with the site. City administrator says that he's good with it, and it's similar to the Abbott project that was actually a few years ago. Similar issues, the resolution as per Abbott. Moving on to the city engineer. City engineer is supportive of the plat closure with the tolerance standards of the city and the geotechnical report that's been provided for this project. He brings up the UDOT approach matter and having that shown on the plat. Again, the plat address says in the surveyor certificate that the reference to multiple lots should be changed to one lot. Again, that's debatable. Is it really one lot or two lot? I'll leave that at the discretion of the city engineer. Existing sanitary sewer pipeline on street frontage must be placed in a sanitary sewer utility easement shown on the plat. Around the perimeter of the subdivision, there needs to be a 10-foot wide public utility easement. Indicate with a note and a leader the buildable footprint on the lot, adjust the buildable area from the HAFB accident potential zone 2. I'll leave that at a discussion with the engineering group and Mr. Nelson, our engineer. Locate exactly, I think that's hard to do exactly, but approximately. So again, that may be a future discussion with our city engineer. Show the lot area in acres and in square footage. Show a vicinity map, which I also noted. Bearing for the basis of bearing is shown different in the boundary description than the plat drawing. Please correct the wrong bearing. Remove the notes which are now non-applicable. So we put that. And then improvement drawings. I went over those in the work session, but if you have any specifically you'd like to ask about, please feel free to know. Otherwise, items 1 through 13 were reviewed in the work session, and I'd be glad to talk about those again if that's desired. Moving on, you'll see the application in the packet. They've fulfilled what they're required to do there in applying and submitting the payment for that. And I will now open up the actual subdivision. Share that, and if you have any questions or comments, we'll get that. Maybe I can shrink that a little bit. Hang on a second here. Okay, and I can blow up if there's anything in particular that you want to ask or look at, but yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I guess I defer to the planning commissioners with any questions or comments you may have of me or for the applicant.
Any comments? Questions?
I have a couple questions. Are these homes going to have secondary water or just city water?
That I'm not sure. I don't know if we have secondary water. We really have limited secondary water in Riverdale City. It's like maybe, I think it's like 20% of the overall area of the city, and I'm not sure if there's any secondary water provided here or not. That I might have to defer to either Cole or Clint's knowledge, if any, but I would say, Wanda, my suspicion is this is culinary water service for everything. I don't know that there's secondary water here or not. I kind of know where it is at, but this is one of the areas where, honestly, in my memory, I'm not sure.
The next okay, the other question I have is, are these homes in an area that they can have basements, or is there a water table there problem?
Well, and let's be clear. This is just one home we're talking about. It's
Okay.
a home and then a remnant parcel. So it's a home building lot and a remnant parcel. As far as the water table, I think it's pretty far away from the Weaver River. Again, I can defer to Mr. Allen, and even in their field book here, they typically will put in a note as far as a floodplain area. And note 2 says it's in a FEMA zone X area, 2% chance annual flood, which means there's a very, very small chance of a flood event, quote unquote, 200-year storm event. And maybe get to the site, but as far as there being a high water table, I think that's an indication that the water depth is pretty far down. I don't know in the geotech report where it indicates the high water table would be, but I have a suspicion it's pretty far down on the site. So could they have basements? Probably. I mean, the geotech report would clarify that, but probably to some extent, yeah.
Any other questions, concerns? Anybody?
So we can kind of help on the secondary culinary water question. Currently, that field has a water system from the Weaver River that feeds ponds on the golf course, and so that is how that field is currently being watered.
There's a water line that runs off the hill and down to kind of the corner house down South River Drive a little bit. So everybody that waters their fields, the water line also feeds this whole area where we run our cattle.
It's not Pineview water is what we were saying, right?
It's not Pineview, but it's Weaver River, so it's got water rights. Ernie Schneider Jr. Trusts this land has water rights.
Right. Yeah. I
don't know if that matters.
I don't know if irrigation would be secondary or culinary. I think that, yeah, I would think it's probably more likely culinary, but that's something that Public Works would be able to
Okay.
you guys. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Blair.
I'd like to make a motion that we forward to the city council with a favorable recommendation on the preliminary subdivision for the property at 5644 South Weaver Drive, with the stipulation of addressing the issues of city staff and the city engineer.
Would you like to amend that to include an approval from the planning commission of the preliminary plat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do I need to state that, or can we just have that on the record?
You can just say support the comment. That's part of your motion.
I support that comment as part of the motion.
I second the motion.
Okay. Shaylee, will you pull the?
All right. Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Nye?
Aye.
Commissioner Spires?
Aye.
Commissioner DeMar?
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, you guys.
And just for the applicant's sake, so what we'll do now with the motion to resolve outstanding concerns, Clint and CRS engineers, it'll be up to you guys to work through all these issues. And then once we know from my engineer and my public works director if their issues have been ironed out, mine are pretty minor. I'm sure you'll iron out mine easy. Once I get a good recommendation from them, then we can set you up for a city council meeting pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, okay. And we've basically already addressed all of your comments, Mike. So it's just a matter of working with Scott and Sean to get their stuff taken care of.
Sounds good. And get right on that UDOT thing.
Yeah, we've already had a discussion about the need for that.
Yeah, they're challenging. So good luck with you. If you need our help, we'll do what we can.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Anybody
I
have any,
move with adjourn.
what was that? Do we have any discretionary items?
Rick, you there?
Yeah, I move with adjourn.
There you go.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Good work, everybody.
Bye.